Steve Roberts. Man, how long have we known each other?
At least 5 years.
Yeah.
I feel like it was AFT that we met and obviously stayed in touch quite a bit over the years.
So tell everybody about Autobooks.
Yeah, so Steve Roberts, CEO, co-founder of Autobooks. We build integrated receivable systems for small businesses, and we work with banks to make that an experience that customers can get access to, inside of digital and mobile banking. So at a high level, we help business run their back office, accelerate their cash flow, and give them some financial reporting to feel more confident in how they run their business. And the goal is to make them increasingly dependent upon the bank and the relationship the bank has with their customer, to deliver an experience for the small business that's just getting started, opening their first business checking account, all the way to one that's starting to grow and optimize and, able to take more advantage of the capabilities the bank, can offer them.
Yeah, one of the things that, we kind of laugh about just a little bit, that everybody, there's things we all know. Banks have to have small business, duh. And there's been a leakage and a creep effect that goes on here, and we get into BaaS and embedded finance. And as you kind of look at the landscape, I think in the old days, we would have people in the call center and we'd react to what, hey, we need to react to this issue or that issue on our ATM or what. But how many people, hell, really, how many people called up and said, I want Venmo? Or that's not on the list, so it's not something we address. And I'm not saying that's cause and effect of how that happened, but we damn sure missed the boat on, Venmo, Square, Cash App, all this, and it's leaked into business now. And not to sell your story for you.
No, and,
I'll tell you what, you gave a great report to me and Tanner, and we have plowed through this thing over and over and over again, and it's really, really interesting and really neat to see all the data and things that you pulled out. Tell me what you've got. What turned you on out of that whole thing?
Yeah, the data is tremendous, and I think to just take a step back, like what we're doing is trying to create a better mousetrap for an age-old challenge, which is these small businesses are oftentimes a little bit too big for a retail consumer relationship, but they're oftentimes kind of commingled. We all know that's been a challenge historically. And then you've got the other side of the spectrum where they're oftentimes just a little too small for the bank's corporate solutions, treasury management, and complexities therein. And it left that audience challenged to go find the solutions they're looking for. And unfortunately, for many years, they had to go leave the financial institution to go find those solutions. So that you mentioned the Venmos, the Squares, and the QuickBooks.
We missed the boat on that bad.
But it was a hard problem to solve because, with all due respect, small businesses by definition are fickle. Right. They're challenging. They got a lot of problems in a minimal amount of time, and it's hard to acquire them and service them because their needs are just so dynamic. So I think fast forward, we're finally in a position where the technology is no longer the problem. Our partners have created an environment for us as a solution provider to step in and stand on the shoulders of the relationship the financial institution has with their customers or members and build a experience inside of these modern digital applications that customers actually want. And they can consume and they can get value and ultimately now take that very complex, fragmented experience into one that's cohesive, efficient, and increasingly self-service. And I think that's kind of the formula, is it has to be efficient and there has to be a high degree of self-service because, with all due respect, we don't want the call centers ringing with every obscure question. We want, ideally, the application to drive an intuitive user experience. And then when those businesses get a little larger and they're ready to take on that next challenge, that's when the commercial banker can step in and say, hey, you've graduated to a point that I'm a steward to take your relationship to the next level.
We watched, we're data junkies and we watched over time. When a lot of this first started, small business, God, back in the 80s, we built QuickBooks and that was, slow adoption. I remember the first time I saw, had 2 floppy disks and, all that kind of stuff. And that's where we started. The first hard drive was amazing. But the businesses were pretty slow to kind of get on board. Everybody goes, look how fast it happened.
It's tricky.
But it was not overnight. And same thing here, that there's business relationships that maybe started out looking more like retail, You know, you probably started that
That's
way
exactly
when you started your business.
It is,
right?
and
Same
to be
here.
honest, some of it hasn't changed a ton, Dave. Like with all due respect, a lot of these businesses are still small.
Right.
You know, again, you know, a couple $100,000 or a couple $1 million. They're oftentimes unsophisticated. Not to be disparaging, but they're running their business. You know, they're installing carpet or installing countertops or pick your profession, and that doesn't make you an expert with finance
Right.
and navigating the
Exactly.
debits and credits.
This
the
is
world.
really a cool
Yeah.
conversation for a banker, I think, because you've got two guys that know banking pretty dang good, and you also got two businessmen at the same time. It's a unique perspective, I think, for hopefully you guys are enjoying this. I am. You know, we've let, I guess, this thing kind of creeped up on a lot of banks, and I hear from a lot of people, you know, bankers are just not engaged. They're not doing that. I'm like, I think they're probably more engaged. You know, maybe not buying this guy's product or that guy's product, but overall, they're more engaged right now than ever, than I've ever seen in my whole career. Bass changed everything. And so inside of Bass, you've got the FinTech world, and we all decided we hated them, and then we decided, well, maybe not so much, right? And then we start getting to embedded finance part of Bass, and you start finding out the local grocery store is actually, is he my competitor or is he my buddy?
Yeah, sure.
And so when we have these small businesses that are working in this direction, and they get, let's say, interceded, right, or intermediary steps in to put in that front end layer you're talking about. You know, I don't care about Square, I don't care about Venmo until we get to business, and all of a sudden you got my attention. That gets my attention. And so when they require that extra layer there, the cost and the loss, one of the things I picked up on that report was just the absolute astounding number of dollars that they don't send back. They just hold it there to use it on the next transaction, right? So, I mean, what are you thinking they ought to do there? I mean, I really want you, if you don't mind, just tell the audience a little bit more about, you know, I'm kind of talking about how it is today, right? We really haven't had a solution that bankers can go in there and say, this doesn't cost a lot, I can plug this in and actually serve that need.
A couple things to unpack there, because you're hitting on some really, I think, profound items. So on the first hand is unlocking access to a tool that we think customers need and can benefit from beyond just a product and a feature, but actually driving an outcome that's good for the bank and good for the small business. So we're all on the same side of the table, focused on the outcome they're trying to go after. So to take that on for a second, in our early days, getting into this industry is not for the faint of heart.
I agree.
You've got to build some strong relationships. You've got to build compelling solution.
Trust.
Absolutely. The reputational risk is daunting if you don't get this right. So with that, you had to build a lot of foundational items before you can even have the privilege of delivering value. So that was, in many fintechs, what consumes you in the early innings. And then you get to a point you start delivering value, and you've got representative case studies and examples. And I'm getting, eventually to the data here. And once we started to actually have, let's say, a few hundred financial institutions, we could begin to aggregate some of the characteristics.
Right.
And this was big bank, small bank, credit union, ag, the geographic characteristics began to normalize, which was we all had these small businesses that were using some products, like maybe they've got a checking account, maybe they're using a debit card, but the reality is there's a lot of other activity occurring below the waterline, like things we used to call years ago the shadow banking. Right. So on that notion, we did some work with Microsoft to publish a data exercise where we brought in kind of an objective data science team to help us kind of normalize and keep the privacy considerations intact. And what we found in that exercise is you saw is for every dollar that the financial institution saw in the form of a deposit, there were several dollars held back. And you got to think about that for a second. So that means if you and I are exchanging commerce on a Square platform, a Venmo platform, that doesn't guarantee those dollars ultimately find their way to their primary DDA. In many cases, they get abstracted away by calling it a held away account.
That's it.
And then they get transacted, and then the traditional financial institution doesn't stand to benefit. The deposit, the service fee, non-interest income, all those other characteristics. So fast forward to today, where we can finally illuminate that challenge and opportunity and say, how do we organize ourselves in a way that we can actually go understand the opportunity and then begin to drive conquests to say, these are capabilities that customers need, clearly,
Right.
and how can the financial institution stand to benefit by offering that solution?
You know, being a bank, it's damn hard to create something to compete with Square, right? It
It's
needs
daunting.
to be delivered from people like you.
Yeah.
But the cool thing, one of the things, I got to tell you this great story. So a couple of years ago, I was hanging out at one of these conferences. We're at AFT, by the way, in Lake Tahoe.
Yeah, pretty,
Not so
pretty
bad.
amazing.
Shitty job, but we'll suffer through this thing.
Enjoy the scenery anyways,
Yeah, it's
folks.
pretty good. Anyway, I was hanging out, and Derek was giving a presentation, your chief revenue guy, and he, great guy, and he talked to the people about, we've actually, it's on the roadmap. It's coming soon to a theater near you. Yes, we have that feature, almost.
Sure.
And really, I don't want to say misled, but we're a victim of our own tactical errors. And so now when it takes a little extra more to get the banker to actually trust you, you've been around a long time now. But back then, the early days, that's a big issue. And I love that perspective that he gave. And in a room full of people that probably are guilty of it as anybody, right? And that was always something that stuck in my head, is that I've just never heard anybody say that before, that the technology vendors they overpromised, underdelivered. And now when real, let's say, problems, issues, change are on the table, everybody's a little bit, and this is what's crazy. When the house is on fire, it's a pretty damn good time to get out, right? Not think about it, not talk about it. We'll talk about it outside. And I think there's a little bit of that right now, where a lot of the bankers that are not fully engaged yet with embedded finance, what's coming, where we're at already, I think it's going to hit them like a tidal wave, because they're expecting a timeline of change. We've got 5 years, we've got 8 years, whatever, and these things are just like about to crest right on you.
So something we've been spending a lot of time on to connect the embedded and what I'll call, the primacy, which is, financial institutions stand to benefit or to suffer in some respect if they lose primacy. And with the advent of all these competing alternatives, which we all know are plentiful, if we can use, I'm going to use the embedded, analogy to help bring innovative solutions into the banking environment that are safe, procured, trustworthy, compliant, and essentially in the best intentions for the financial institution, we can actually, again, sit on the same side of the table to go actually solve problems. Now, the problem in doing that years ago was, and for many good reasons, I've got the utmost respect for the challenge, large processors and providers and digital banks have, because it's a complex world, heavily regulated, security, compliance, feature.
Or we're dead.
It's challenging.
Yeah.
But that said, work has been made, progress has been made. Now, many of these major providers have created an environment through, call it SDKs or toolkits or marketplaces, that have lowered the barrier of entry for innovation to allow providers like us to come in and de-risk the effort from the financial institution, both in cost, in time, and effort. And again, swing that pendulum to say, I have a problem or an opportunity in my financial institution to better serve this demographic that I really care about, but I haven't had the ability to really unlock its full potential. And now, without having to devote product roadmaps and six-figure implementations for all the other competing interests we know is hard to do in this environment, we now, through, I would say, in AFT, I think is a great example for a backdrop, that the community has come together to create an environment that allows us to make progress. And the benefactor should be the financial institution and ultimately the customers they serve.
That's it.
Yeah.
And let's talk for a second, man. When we're talking about, what can I do? I can protect your business accounts. I can help you with embedded financial. That's a massive custom solution. We can do this fast. I mean, how fast are we talking?
Well, one of our partners, you can be live in 60 to 90 days. The truth is, most don't go that fast because they've got their own internal priorities and go-to-market preparing. But the technology's largely turnkey. You can go into a Banno back office and literally through a feature flag turn on Autobooks. It's pre-built, pre-certified, and you could have it on tomorrow. So technically, that capability exists. And with other partners, it's as easy as contacting your account executive and saying, how do I enable this capability? And there's a lightweight, kind of implementation. But we're talking weeks, not months.
Right. Well, and most banks don't have the staff to go out there and customize a solution for each one of their business clients. It's not even reality, right?
It's tricky.
And but you guys have a lot of banks already, so you've got a war chest of referenceable clients, and here's what happened with us. Here's what we saw. This is how it went. But the speed to market, I think, is a big one.
It is.
And then what does it cost?
Yeah. So we have slightly different agreements with all of our partners, but suffice it to say, we, Autobooks and our partner, have done a significant amount to subsidize the cost for the financial institution. So simply put, again, if I'm with Jack Henry Banno, I can turn Autobooks on at no cost. The same is true for FIS, the same is true for Q2. So think about that for a second. Like years ago, you're talking 6-figure implementations, dozens of implementation people, lots of overhead just to launch a feature that you don't even know is going to really deliver on its potential. And many didn't back then.
Right.
Now you've got the ability to turn something on quickly and cost effectively that has been proven by your peers to actually drive the outcomes you're looking for. So a really tremendous, step function.
And if you don't like it, turning it off is just
that's
as easy.
it. Yeah, it's a very easy off, and if we don't deliver value, we don't deserve to service the business.
Man, you gotta love this. It sounds like I'm over here interviewing you about your product, and it's like I find companies occasionally that, I have people all the time like, God, man, I wish I worked with you. You get to hang out at Lake Tahoe, right? And there's companies that I see sometimes where it's like, this is so good. And it's good for banking, and I'm all about that.
Good for the industry.
And if the bankers can get introduced to cool stuff along the way, that's a big win for everybody. And I think, we talk a lot about people that probably shouldn't talk. They confuse everyone, they scare the hell out of everybody, cost millions of dollars. You're gonna have 25 people on your staff, and it's like absolutely not the case anymore. And these things are getting, I'm not talking about crazy fintech crypto here. I'm just talking about basic cool products like yours. Cheaper, faster implementation, more compliant. It's a snap.
Something Derek said, and he's been in the industry.
But watching your damn business clients walk out the door, that is unrecoverable.
It is very difficult. And I use the word primacy, and some of our banks use that word. So the relationship depth. If you've got I'll use an example. We've got data, and that's the beauty. I know you're a data guy. That some of our customers, through their own analysis or third parties, have done an interrogation of the customers that use this solution versus the customers that don't. And happy to say, deposits substantially are higher for this solution. They use more of the bank's products, whether they're new to bank or existing bank customers.
You had something in that report about
It's
that
tremendous.
growth in deposit was outrageous.
It's 65%. 65%. Now, some of that is, a selected bias to say, like, the people that use Autobooks have a propensity of doing more transactions. But what it gets at is what we talked about earlier, is we're taking that deposit that might have gone to another solution provider, and we're home running it into the FI. And that's an important foundation. Now that we've got primacy and a little bit more engagement as a back office, we can then extend the debit solution, the payable solution, working capital. But the thing I'd love to just touch on is, again, Derek said this a while ago, is democratization. Meaning, years ago, when great innovations took place, they generally had to start at the top because they had the resources and the budget. And then they, over the years, worked their way and take bill pay, take mobile. I mean, the truth is, somebody had to underwrite and invest in these significant innovations. And now the pendulum's completely gone the other way through a combination of, leadership at these organizations and the tools and technologies. But here we are today, smaller financial institutions can have capabilities that would rival very large, banks that have all the resources in the budget and be able to, again, continue to deliver value in their respective geography or community. So it isn't about, a couple of features that the customer has to make a selection on. Like, I have to have a mobile banking app by a top 4 bank because they're the only one that can service my need. Turns out we can deliver many of those capabilities and build on the relationship, at that local community level, because we've kind of leveled the playing field.
One of the cool tech features you have is tap to pay, which, you got people that are like, what the hell's tap to pay? And then you got the rest of us that are like, the only way I ever do it,
I'm really excited about it.
And that right there, these are the technological advances that some of the fintechs came up with that created a better solution for the actual endpoint, right? And anywhere along that, it could be, whether we're talking about online retail or in-person retail, whatever, purchases, somewhere in that journey, it may be right before the end, it may be point of sale. There's always a place to where we got a new rental property, we got a cool apartment, be a great place when we're signing a lease to offer them insurance. I mean, I've heard that one 100 times, and it's like an easy one, but it makes sense. And once everybody always talked about these things, it's coming, and I think my message to everybody is it's here, and it's time to get your ass in gear. And you don't have to spend $1 million to do all this stuff. It's available. And God, I'll tell you what, when I heard of some of the things you guys are up to, it got me pretty jazzed up.
Thank you, Dave. So a little, just to kind of do a quick, history here, like, with the debit card and EMV, right? That was a long time coming. And, while a lot of folks have said, our industry hasn't moved very quickly, the truth is there's been a lot of important infrastructure that's being laid. And yeah, we'd all love to move faster, but there's good reasons why sometimes you can't just flip a switch and instantly, change the world. But now we're finally at a point that a lot of these foundations can be built upon. So with respect to Tap to Pay. So Tap to Pay is a contactless payment capability that a small business can basically use their mobile banking app to receive a card payment in person. Now that card could be a debit card, a credit card, it could be a digital wallet.
You see the little circles on the machine?
Yeah.
Yep.
And it's and now what that is, in my opinion, is possible because of what we've done with our partners to bundle a merchant account and a checking account.
Right.
And why is that important? Is most financial institutions have a relatively low overlap between their checking account base and their merchant service portfolio. And that is kind of a limited upside because that other 95% is going to somewhere else.
Right.
So to use an analogy of like what a direct deposit is to a consumer, a merchant account is to a business.
Bingo.
It's the primary method with which we can help that business get paid. And if we can make that primary method the default financial institution they bank with, we have a foundation that, what's the upward boundary now? It's certainly not 5%. I would say it's 10, 20, 30%.
Right.
So bundling the merchant account and the checking account was job one. That was something that we worked hard on for the last couple of years. Now we've taken what we can do with a card not present, online, e-commerce, pay an invoice, process payment, to an in-person. And now similar to a mobile remote deposit capture, right? That was a great innovation a few years ago.
That was a whopper.
Take a check, take a picture, no more trips to the branch, the expense of processing and all the Progress Check 21 allowed. Yeah. Now that dollar can be deposited in my account. The same is now true for card payments. So think about that for a second. My businesses that are in the field do not need any third-party hardware. They don't need any, complex third-party arrangements. I can simply open up my mobile banking app, say I want to accept the payment. Dave, you owe me $25 for that record player in my garage sale. Bump the card, and now that deposit home runs to my financial institution. So again, we are very, very excited about what that can do for the industry, given yet another valuable way for businesses to get paid.
So we talk a lot about, with the BaaS stuff and all of this, fintechs and embedded finance and all of that. We used to kid around, I mean, like, really have a lot of fun with this one. But the S&P 500, talking about it being a stock car race and, when these people get employed into these activities, right? Everybody can see that now. I mean, it's like every major company you've ever heard of is going to have some type of reward program, something, right? They're in this game. These two guys have been fighting it out forever on price, on quality, on whatever that service, whatever it is. Now they have a new weapon. It's finance, and whether that's 5% cash back or 100% cash back or whatever they want to do, that's a marketing decision for them. It's not a real, well, what about the interchange? Hey, if I want to compete with a guy across the street, let's take the gloves off and go over there and get it on, right?
Yeah.
So everybody sees the bigger businesses being able to do this and got that. And where's that bar? And we've had this conversation a million times.
It's true.
Where's that damn bar? And I think what you just outlined a minute ago is that there is no damn bar. It's going down to everybody.
And it's not a race to the bottom in the days of old where it was commoditized processing. With all due respect, that's what corporates compete because they have sophistication, they have pricing leverage. But this demographic isn't as price sensitive as people believe. Now, don't get me wrong, we've all been to the restaurant that doesn't take an American Express or wants to pass through a convenience fee. That is still a thing. But the reality is for the masses, they're willing to pay a premium if you make their job simpler, you make it, to give them some time back and give them a premium outcome, which is get my money faster. I don't want to drive across town to pick up that check on a job. Give me a simple and standardized way to get paid, and I'm willing to pay a premium for that service. Right. And now we're no longer fighting over pennies. We're actually building and pricing on dollars. So that, again, benefits the entire network. It benefits the financial institution. And the business, again, has a differentiated solution. I aggregate all my payment methods through one way. My year end is cleaner. My monthly reporting is cleaner and more. We're essentially digitizing the file cabinet. Yeah. It's just as they outgrow that spreadsheet and they're ready for give me a back office that I can run my business with lightweight sophistication, right? These aren't titans of industry. And I would argue that demographic is desperate for solutions.
Yes, right? Yeah. Man, I'll tell you, the idea, and I've watched, every banker out there knows this too. You've watched the agriculture community turn into all of a sudden there's everything everywhere, and we've had to shift our, now we're commercial, right? Just from the geographic growth.
Sure.
What used to be the country is now part of the suburb. As this transition happens, you've watched banks just get their ass kicked over, hey, this guy's, let's say Core or whatever else for better treasury services or different things that there's out there for them to operate their commercial operations with. And everybody's like, yeah, man, it was great move for us. We killed everybody and took over the world. That's wonderful. This that you're talking about is another piece of that. It really is just one more piece that we're trying to pound the table. Don't be the guy that got left out on that one, right? And I really, man, I'll tell you what, there's just not enough words to say thank you for guys like you that I met you when first getting started, seen you roll through this whole thing, and you're doing a good service for banks.
Well, thank you, Dave. It's been great to get to know you and the services you guys provide, because we were a consumer of your services early on to help us get organized as a young company figuring out our way. And honestly, venues like this at AFT, just to give credit where credit is due, the collisions, the relationships that get built, a lot of our success, I honestly attribute to our involvement at AFT. And with those relationships, with folks trying to solve tough problems, and we know it's possible. And the industry saw this challenge, but finally we've got solutions, we've got partners with a vested interest, and with all due respect, I think the industry's recognized this is no longer a, what's the word, something that they couldn't do at scale profitably. Servicing small businesses was challenging years ago. And I think we're proving now this can actually be done at scale very profitably, and the banks and credit unions stand to benefit significantly in the years to come. So we want to kind of challenge that old status quo of, this is a fickle demographic that we can't successfully do. There's high churn or poor retention. That's a misnomer. This demographic needs help. They're getting these services from third-party non-bank providers, and we're trying to bring it into the ecosystem that we can all stand to benefit from.
That's perfect. So, I don't know if I'm the sidekick or if he's the sidekick, but Tanner always talks about, just the idea that there is, used to be kind of easy. It was difficult on the implementation, difficult of the, connectivity to build a product and get it, distributed through cores or whoever, however you wanted to do that.
It's hard.
Or digital. And the fact you talked about that a minute ago, how much easier that is, right? But at the same time, the complexities of partnerships with companies, if you just think, okay, I'm going to go build a product, we'll get a distribution partner with one of the cores and everything's cool. Not so much. And they may not fully comprehend what the hell you're talking about because of the speed of some of this change. And so
success is not the default. Yeah, it is not the default.
I'll tell you, there's a lot going on, and it takes people, I think, that have the depth to understand how these things actually work. And back to what Derek said that time about, we kind of lost some trust with the bankers, and I really believe that's important that we, I don't want to even say regain. Hell, we've regained their trust, but everybody knows, if you don't know this, we must move faster. The math is not on our side, and we can talk about, hey, would you invest in a bank stock today? Well, let me ask the other side of that is, do you think there'll be any more mergers in the future? Well, they're going to do that not with cash, but with their stock price. So when those stock prices come back, we're going to see a flurry of M&A. And to say that differently, we're going to plan a lot of banks, and I hate to see that. And there are unreal profitable solutions. People like you just working your butt off to try to help and save them. Pick up the phone. Let's do these things and try to get more profitable solutions. I've always said, I've been saying this since before it was cool, that if you think you're going to merge with another bank, the two of us merged together in our bank, now we're 500 million, and we're going to compete with, Wells Fargo? Not likely. And then now the conversation is, I don't know if we need the regional banks. All right, now what the hell are we trying to do here? And I think if you go through history and you look at, particularly with the Soviet Union collapse and those countries that are trying to build up their banking system. Got a great buddy of mine, Tom Gary, that did a bunch of work in Estonia and told me some crazy stories about what it would be like if we had 4 banks. It's not good. And the consumer is an afterthought. And so I think you're trying to save the day. We're trying to save the day. There's a whole lot of people in there trying to save the day.
That's right.
And
I think we're long banking. Yeah, no, thank you for the opportunity. I'm long community banking, long regional banking. There's a place for the market is enormous. That's one benefit. consolidation is inevitable. The cost of doing business is obviously growing substantially. The overhead to maintain the capabilities to deliver services at scale. And we're just one piece, let's be honest. We're a humble steward of making sure all facets, business and treasury and cash management just being one of many, that you can have highly optimized. And if you put that together in an environment where leadership believes there's an offensive opportunity to build market share, and in this environment, deposits. So how do you help solve the problem that's being asked in the boardroom? And we believe right now that's a real war on deposits, and helping through merchant
and letting
grow
them
deposits.
sit idly over there and Cash App and other things.
That's not helping us.
It's not good.
Yeah.
That's
So
just silly.
let's put together a strategy to help there, and then continue to build out other complementary services that help the collective industry live to its potential.
Well, let me say one last thing here, and then I'm going to give you some final thoughts. That's Tanner's thing. You got a lovely family. I know some of the people that come out and do these things are, I don't want to say, let's say fly by night. How about that? That's a nice way to say it. They're in it for themselves. People like you, you've risked everything to put some products in the marketplace that are absolutely timely, needed. The bankers, we're not asking for a hell of a lot here. Save yourself. We're trying, the old line, don't get that life preserver away from me. Can't you see I'm drowning? And I think there's a little bit of that, and hopefully some of this is resonating with you guys, that it is time to do some neat things that are out there that are not risky or expensive. They're for you. And there's people that put their families 100% at risk. Nobody's even asking you to take a risk. Final thoughts, buddy. We can talk football.
Yeah.
What do you got?
I am so singularly focused. I am not a guy that could share his favorite Netflix show right now. So I think what you're getting with our team is a group that's truly passionate about small business, lives, sleeps, breathes, eats this. We love it. We're passionate about it. And we just want to be helpful and know our place and our role, and ultimately our loyalty is to help this community. And if I'm not spending time with my family, it's trying to have intelligent conversations that can help us make progress. So that consumes me, that gives me energy, and I got a team of people that are as energetic as I am. And again, just genuinely appreciate the opportunity to be here. We got patient investors that give us that opportunity. We got a market that would stand to benefit if we just kind of keep our head down and keep doing our jobs.
I'll tell you what, I talked to some folks last night, and you and Derek walked by, and I said there are people in this business that do things for themselves, and there's people that are selfless, that have a high level of integrity, and there's two of them right there.
Thank you. I appreciate that, sir. Thanks,
Take care, buddy.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for riding with the Cowboys.
Yeah, that's all right.